So, welcome to the next edition of the Rare Business Podcast. With me today, I have Mikhail Naumov, who is co-founder and president of DigitalGenius. Hi, Mikhail. How are you doing?
Hi, Adrian. Thanks for having me here today.
You are very welcome. Now, Mikhail, can you, for the benefit of our readers and also our listeners, can you tell us a bit about you and a bit about the sort of work that you do at DigitalGenius?
Sure. So at DigitalGenius, we're bringing practical applications of deep learning and AI to contact centers of rapidly growing companies and well-established enterprises. We've been on this journey now for almost 4 years, living inside contact centers, studying the day-to-day habits of the contact center's employees and managers, and figuring out one thing, which is how do we apply AI and machine learning to these contact centers in a way that will deliver practical value. And so that's what DigitalGenius does. We've got 2 offices, one in San Francisco, one in London. We've got just over 60 people working in the company now, and a great suite of customers that we've been able to help.
Perfect. Now, one of the reasons, so we've been talking about, I mean, you're a man that's hard to pin down, so thank you for making this time today, because we've been talking about trying to do this for a while. I know that you, I came across you via my friend Minter. I know that you spoke to Minter a while ago, so a big shout out to Minter Dial. If anybody hasn't checked out his podcast, then do check out Minter Dial's Mindset podcast. That's MYNDSET. He's a cool guy, knows his stuff. But one of the things that, so we've been talking about trying to get together and have a chat about AI and what you're doing in contact centers and stuff. But more recently, you also published a new book, and it's called AI is My Friend, a practical guide for contact centers. And I thought, that's interesting. Why don't we start with that? So, Mikhail, can you give me a little bit of background on the book and sort of like why you wrote it, what it's all about, and what's its purpose?
Yeah, well, so first of all, the idea of writing a book came very organically. As I mentioned, we spent 3.5, almost 4 years living inside of these contact centers trying to answer one question about how do we apply AI in a way that creates value for businesses. And we learned so much along the way that it made sense to put it together into an anthology of insights. And so the book very much, it doesn't talk much about our company. It only talks about the insights we have gathered over the years of bringing AI technology to reality in some of the world's most innovative contact centers. And so you could think of it as a guide from the trenches, so to speak.
There you go.
And at the end of every chapter is a short interlude, which is featuring a industry practitioner, a customer, a contact center leader, or even a contact center agent who is utilizing AI in their day-to-day job to perform at their best. And so we decided to put this book together. It's meant to be a quick airplane read, about 150 pages. And it kind of uncovers, the what you need to know about making AI practical for your contact center today.
Perfect. Now, so that you answered my my first question, which was, because I know at the back of the book, I think it says it describes itself as being from the trenches, and so you've tackled that first one because you went and you hung out in contact centers, and rather than talking about things theoretically about what could and should be, you actually went and saw the pain, I guess, in real time. But before we get into some of these kind of insights and things that you're talking about, I mean, let's kind of back up a little bit, because there's like a huge amount of talk right now about, where are we going to start? Like, let's start with kind of AI and machine learning and neural networks and robotics and automation and all of this sort of stuff within a customer service kind of context. I mean, can you kind of almost like, let's split some of this stuff out and say, kind of what is the difference between AI and robotics and automation in a customer service context, or is it all the same thing?
That's a good one. So there's no doubt about it. There is a lot of hype in the space today around AI. And a lot of times it's portrayed as this like big black box and you don't really know what's inside. But essentially, a few things happened over the course of the last few years that made AI an important technology to consider in business, including in contact centers. Mm-hmm. So the first thing that happened is that over the years, we have gathered an abundance of historical data. If you think about this, we are creating more data today every single day than ever before. And so in a contact center, this data is usually stored in the form of chat logs or email transcripts and past conversations that, you've had with a contact center about your lost password or about, your lost bag on an airline. And so all of this data is just sitting there in the contact center database, and, most of the time it's just collecting dust. And so because we now have this data, it becomes interesting and important to think about it. How do you unlock value from this historical data? Mm-hmm. The second thing that happened that kind of brought about this swing in the AI transformation is that the actual hardware that enables you to train AI models has become a lot more efficient and a lot more accessible from a cost perspective. So we work with companies like NVIDIA, and we use their technologies, they're called GPUs, to train our neural network models significantly faster and at a better cost basis than we would otherwise. And so suddenly now you have the hardware that can process all this massive amounts of data that we talked about. And finally, sort of the third aspect that really came together to make it a perfect storm was the advancement of the algorithms themselves. Mm-hmm. So you have had, cohorts of PhD researchers spending the last few decades, literally decades, thinking about artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning in particular, and perfecting the science part of the AI movement, mm-hmm. and publishing papers and presenting at research conferences and such. Now, what has happened is that these algorithms have become a lot more effective. So now to the point where a computer can now recognize an image better than a human being with a higher level of accuracy. And the same thing can happen not just with images, but with other data sets, including customer service data. So it's these three factors: the abundance of data, the improvement in the hardware, and the improvement of the actual AI algorithms that brought about this perfect storm, which makes AI practically interesting and applicable today. And to answer your question a little bit more directly about, what is AI, what is robotics, what is automation? I would say AI is the overarching general concept, a technology that you can use to achieve certain outcomes. Okay. It's not magic, it's just math. Mm-hmm. And then robotics and automation are more granular, aspects of that general category.
Perfect. That makes kind of more sense. And thank you for that, because there is this, like you kind of said, it's like there's a lot of hype. But let's kind of come back to the hype kind of part of it, kind of a little bit kind of later. I mean, maybe we're talking about the book here, and we're also and through that probably the work that you've done and the things that you've learned along the way. I mean, but you did specifically talk about kind of hanging out in contact centers and compiling all these insights that you've put into the book. I mean, can you give us a flavor of some of the big things that you've kind of learned, and that what people are doing and trying to tackle those things?
Yeah, of course. So I'll start with the most broad insight, sure. Which is that AI today is getting put into one of two buckets. By everyone, by business executives, by the media, by individuals. And those two buckets is that AI is either a threat, a threat to jobs, a threat to the economy, a threat to the individual's job and well-being, or AI is a superpower, the second bucket, which is that AI will help us as individuals. It will help us as groups of organization, companies, economies. And AI will be the catalyst or the tool that helps us bring about the next age industrial revolution, if we make a little parallel there. Sure. So that's the first insight. And it's an important discussion to have, because there are some aspects of AI that could be considered threatening. But there are overwhelmingly few, and there are many more examples of where AI is actually coming in to serve as a tool to help individuals perform better every single day. Now, we use AI every day when we do things like, we perform a Google search or we do some image recognition. This is happening in our day-to-day lives every day, and a lot of times we end up taking it for granted. Mm-hmm. So the idea about is AI a threat or a superpower, it's all about in its application. So we focused on contact centers and specifically making contact centers more efficient so they can make the process of customer service better for the end customer and for the company. Mm-hmm. And therefore, in the world of business applications, AI is first and foremost a superpower that will help companies unlock new new efficiencies that they need to be able to compete in the world of today and in the world of the future. There are some aspects of threatening AI applications, of course, because people end up using tools for good, and of course some bad actors can use some tools for bad, which is why concurrently with the development of AI technologies for businesses, we must be thinking about development of AI safety protocols and ways to make sure that if this technology is used for the wrong reason, it could be stopped, it could be fixed essentially.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I've kind of written about sort of before, about this idea around transparent and opaque AI systems, and how the opaque ones are inherently more powerful because they don't necessarily have to explain themselves and don't necessarily need to be audited. But then the use of that sort of type of artificial intelligence technology is going to require other elements like QA, risk management, kind of governance kind of stuff that needs to wrap around it to make sure you manage all of those outcomes. I mean, we could probably both kind of share a few stories about some of the very, very public examples of when companies have used this technology and it's gone wrong. It's just produced bad outcomes.
Of course, yeah, we've seen. I mean, the most notable example was that AI-powered chatbot on Twitter, I think just over a year ago, which very quickly learned from the internet trolls and took on a persona of racism and just very negative things. And so that's an example of how an AI system, if left unchecked, can create problems in the world.
Mm-hmm. So let's go back to the kind of the hype thing, because it's like, I mean, I think it's. We can't I don't think we can escape any kind of day when there is not some mention of sort of artificial intelligence or new technology in the media kind of right now, and even kind of mainstream TV kind of news broadcasts. It's not just industry specific; it's kind of across the broader media landscape. So let me ask you this, Mikhail: is that how much hype do you think there is around right now when it comes to AI? I mean, and it's a bit of a sort of interlude. I mean, should I start rooting around and start thinking about playing that certain Public Enemy song? Don't believe the hype.
You might as well at this point, Adrian, because I think we are very quickly nearing the very peak of the hype cycle for this AI business applications and even beyond business applications. The important thing to remember is that artificial intelligence as a science has been around for decades. You know, folks were looking into this and conducting very, very interesting research around this for decades. Mm-hmm. And what changed now is that suddenly those three forces that I mentioned earlier, the abundance of data, the hardware, and the improvement of the algorithms, came together in this trifecta, which now make AI practically applicable in business. And of course, everyone who's out there trying to build technology companies and is going to want to be either an early adopter of this technology or jump on the bandwagon in many cases and claim or try to reinvent their own tech company with an AI flavor. And we see this happening all the time. I see companies renaming themselves to make AI more of their core focus, changing their taglines. This is an everyday thing. And some of the industry's biggest tech companies have now stood up and said AI will be the biggest, most important transformation for our company in the history of our company. Yeah. And therefore, they're creating a lot of marketing and excitement around the future and what it will look like when AI is helping us be better and do our job more effectively. Now, what ends up kind of getting lost in the mix is how close are we as an economy, or how close are these individual companies to the vision that they are portraying now with this AI future? Have they indeed made the necessary investments ahead of time? Have they shown traction and results of applying AI in a practical sense? That remains to be seen, because as you mentioned, Adrian, a lot of this is very new and the hype is very real. And so that's part of why we wrote the book. We looked at it and said, my God, there's more .ai startups being started every day, domain names being registered than ever.
Yeah.
And so how confusing is this for business executives and contact center leaders who are just simply trying to figure out, how do I give my team the best technology available to make sure they can do their job at their best every day? And so part of the reason we wrote this, and there's an entire chapter dedicated to mapping out the AI landscape and being able to tell, what is what.
Right. I mean, because that's the thing. With every sort of like, if you like, hype cycle, I mean, we can go back a number of years and just think about CRM when it first entered the business sphere, and it was trumpeted as being all things to all people, and it was going to solve everything, and we're going to skip off into the sunset and live happily ever after, and yet CRM still, in many cases, proving itself, and it's only just started to really kind of prove itself, and so it's taken possibly around about sort of 15, 20 years to get to that sort of stage. So that sort of implies that within all that kind of hype, there's a lot of stuff that's getting sold, as it were, and possibly it's not necessarily delivering the outcomes, and and maybe there's some people that are contact centers or customer service kind of leaders that are possibly getting caught up in the kind of the maelstrom. So from your perspective, what do you think that some businesses in the contact centers are, what are some of the common mistakes that you're seeing when it comes to this, the sort of grappling with and the implementation of AI tools? And so what sort of things should they be thinking about fixing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's kind of a multi-part question here, right? So the first part is, the adoption of a new technology takes time. Right. And your example was CRM, and where would the world be today if we could not organize information around our business relationships in a well-organized way through a CRM system? Like it would be a lot more challenging for us to conduct business at the velocity with which we as an economy conduct business today. So no doubt about it, it took a long time, but there's no doubt about that it is made a tremendous impact on the world of business. Mm-hmm. Same thing I think is going to happen with AI. It's not an overnight magic bullet. In fact, if you really think about artificial intelligence, it's not magic. It's just math, and it's math done in a very, very sophisticated way using very advanced hardware technology with some of the world's greatest minds, figuring out how do you make sense of an ever-increasing amount of data to create value. And so I think AI is going to be proving itself over the course of the next 5 to 10 years. But the thing about it is that it has this aspect that CRM and even like cloud computing and all these other fashionable trends that we've experienced over the last decade or so, AI has something that none of them ever had, and that is the ability to learn continuously. Right. So with a CRM system, you set it up, you're kind of good to go, and you sort of populate it as you go. Cloud computing is cloud computing. You put it up there, you secure it. It's a lot of hard work that needs to be done to build the infrastructure. But once you're there, and it's kind of just works. With AI, if you start on day 1, on day 3 and day 10 and day 30 and day 1,000, the impact of the AI on your business is going to be significantly different, and it's going to be a lot more. So we see this with our customers every day. Our software today is powering over 30 contact centers globally. These are some of the world's biggest companies, like airlines, insurance companies, and transportation logistics companies, and so on. And every day that this AI is there helping their agents be more productive, it's learning, and it's getting just a little bit better so that over time it can deliver more and more value to those users, to those agents, to those managers. Mm-hmm. So that's what AI has that those other technologies really didn't have, which is why it's important to keep things in perspective, of course. It's not an overnight, magic trick. It's actually going to take time, but it is important to look into it and invest in this type of technology sooner rather than later, because it continues to learn and gets better. So,
if I think about sort of business and kind of human nature generally, and there will be a segment of people that are in this sort of space that are just sort of like standing watching from the sidelines. There's always going to be some people that go, "Ooh, this looks great," and they'll jump in and they'll get stuck into it. And then there's also other people that are not necessarily kind of early adopters, but they're fast adopters once things kind of get going. But so they're standing on the sidelines right now, and they're thinking, right, fine, let me kind of see where when the dust settles, or when the next bus comes along, I'll get on it. But I need some clues about thinking about, if I have a contact center and it's got a few hundred heads, let's say, if not more, and they're thinking, right, where should I start when it comes to thinking about some of this sort of stuff? What should I be focusing on? Kind of where's a great kicking off point? Because I guess that's the kind of the thing. Because otherwise, we're still back into the hype and this huge amorphous sort of umbrella sort of term. So, from your experience, given that you've worked with some of these leading players, they'll have some experience, and you could probably say, actually, from our experience, here's a great place to think about starting.
Yeah, great question. So actually, the first part of your question was around, the early adopters versus the people that are going to sit on the sidelines for a little while to see how the story unfolds. We actually, we've worked this into our own process at DigitalGenius, and every time where we engage with a new customer or prospect, we simply ask them two questions. We say, look, Mr. Customer, on a scale of 1 to 10, how impactful do you think AI is going to be to your contact center? And if they give us an answer that's, a 7 or above, which, by the way, happens all the time, it's an indicator that, they are very interested. It's an obvious thing. They're very interested. They think it's going to have a big impact. And I keep hearing this more and more now. Every conference, every event, every one-on-one meeting, the number keeps getting higher. And the second question we follow up with is, okay, well, in what span of time do you think these changes will be happening? Sure. And, we're looking for an answer like, in a year or two, maybe in 3 years, AI will transform my contact center. Now, I've been shocked with the amount of people that have come back to me and said, are you kidding me? If we don't do this now, we're going to fall behind. And so that's usually a very exciting thing for me to hear, because it means I'm speaking with someone who's not just understands the impact it's going to have, but also understands the urgency. And so that's addressing the first part. The second part of the question is, okay, I'm a contact center manager. I have a few hundred agents working every day to deliver, customer service experiences. How do I give this a try? How do I actually see if this stuff is for real? Mm-hmm. Well, before going out there and contacting vendors and trying to get absorbed into this whole AI world, one important thing to do is to conduct a very high-level audit of your internal systems to try to, get a baseline of where you're at today. This means looking at, number one, what are all the customer service software tools that you're currently using in your stack? For example, you might be using Salesforce Service Cloud or Zendesk or another one of these tools, but you might also have a number of other software running kind of concurrently, and your agents are using many of them at the same time. Mm-hmm. The second thing to look at internally before you ever go out and talk to an AI company is what are the current metrics at the contact center. So, what's my volume coming in every day, every month, every week? Because this becomes important. If your volume is something like a dozen messages per week, like it's not enough data for an AI algorithm to train on. Mm-hmm. So pursuing AI might not be a good fit for your size operation at this point. But if we're talking a few hundred people at the contact center, we're definitely talking in the realm of enough volume. The second thing is, okay, well, how long is it taking an average agent to handle a typical case? And what would it mean if we can take 10 to 20 to 30% to 40% of that time, if we can shave that time off the average handling time of an average case? Because this is what AI is addressing. It helps your agents answer these queries much faster than before by automating certain repetitive parts of the process. This way, your agents only have to spend time on the parts of the conversation that are most challenging, that are most important, and ones that aren't really, don't lend itself to an AI algorithm, but one that requires human, genuine approach, whereas the machine can focus on the things that the machine is better at doing anyway, like classifying cases and suggesting answers to agents and maybe automating some processes in the flow. And so doing an internal audit is a really good way to start, so you can understand, okay, my average handling time is 7 minutes. If I could shave that down to 4, this would be the overall impact to my business. Right. This way, when you go and reach out to these AI vendors, you're not just coming around with nothing, without any inputs, but you're saying, look, I have 100,000 cases a month. The average handling time is 7 minutes. I need to get it down to 4 minutes because if I do, it'll save me X millions of dollars. What can you offer me that can help me achieve that goal? This way, the AI company's like, wow, okay, great. Like, and they can speak to your specific case. Whereas otherwise, they would have to spend a lot of time digging around and asking you discovery questions, which is also fine. But at the end of the day, if you have your numbers and bring them to an AI company that knows what they're doing, they should be able to turn it around fairly quickly and tell you what they can achieve.
Okay. So, I mean, some of the things you said there, we talked about sort of data and stuff. You were talking about this trifecta at the beginning, so like amount of and access to data, hardware, and kind of science. But then you also, you talked about this idea about a smaller center may not necessarily that has low, maybe or a center that has lower volumes may not necessarily have enough data. I guess that's probably the $64 million question. Is like, how much is enough data?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I'll speak from experience with working with customers. So sort of in the real world, and I'll put it this way. The smallest company that we have ever implemented our AI product with had just 10 agents. And this team of 10 agents was handling a certain amount of volume, and that volume was enough for the product to create value. And part of the reason why this happens is that actually training an AI algorithm is a two-part process. You could think of it like an equation, and you have something on the left side of the equation, you have something on the right side of the equation.
Sure.
So to train your AI algorithm for the contact center, the left side of the equation is all the historical data that you can use to train the initial model. But that's only half the process. The second half is actually learning from the actions of your existing agents. So with this AI system in place, it is learning all of the things that your agents are doing. It is, watching how those agents are adjusting answers, how they're, approving certain answers, and it's getting better over time. So the idea is that it gets better with the historical data as well as with the ongoing agent interactions. So the smallest contact center we ever worked with was just 10 agents. The largest one is thousands of agents. And so anything that falls in between will probably be in the sweet spot of what AI can do for you. I guess where it doesn't work is if, A, you have fewer than 10 agents, which usually means you have very low volume. And also in places where the customer service inquiries are less customer service and more concierge-like, where you need someone to do something for you. Yes. And it can't necessarily be learned by a machine.
Okay, I mean that makes more sense. But does it also, if you like a lower number of seats and less for by inference, almost like a lower volume of data, that actually the timeline in terms of improvements and impact may be slightly longer as well?
That's right. I'm glad you picked up on that, Adrian, because undoubtedly the machine is learning not just from the historical data, but from the ongoing interactions. So if you have a much lower volume of ongoing interactions because you have a very small team, it will take a little bit longer for the machine than, let's say, if you compare one for one with a contact center with 10,000 agents.
Right.
That's just the pure math. More volume, more learning, more data points. That's how it works.
Yeah, perfect. So, Mikhail, I have a couple other kind of things I wanted to ask you about. The first one was going to say, well, that's all brilliant. But I wanted to say, could you, almost like bring it to life for us and kind of give us a couple of examples of, and if you can name them, then that's great. But give us a couple of sort of real examples of where you've helped a client, what they've wanted to do, how you've helped them, and the sort of results that they're seeing. Just to sort of take all this kind of technology and strip away the hype and say, right, fine, show us where the rubber hits the road.
Of course. Yeah, no, I love this because this is actually one of our strength today. So many companies are talking about AI, but they really don't have much to show for it as far as real customer case studies and stories where their AI is being used. So I love this question because it gets to the root of why here at Digital Genius we're doing this. It's because we want to help companies deliver better customer service experiences for their end customers. Mm-hmm. And so one great example is a company called KLM Royal Dutch Airlines. For the folks in the audience, you may have already considered them as an innovator in the digital space. They were the first to conduct customer service on Facebook Messenger. They recently became the first airline globally to conduct customer service on WhatsApp. So they really go above and beyond to try to work with their customers and help their customers in the places that are most convenient to the customer. And so they're clearly an innovator. Now, with all this innovation, with all these new channels like Facebook Messenger and Twitter and WhatsApp, comes new challenges. And one of the challenges KLM started experiencing over a year ago is that when they open a new channel, it's so appealing and it's so easy for customers to reach out to them that their contact center got flooded with new inbound inquiries. Think about it. You no longer have to pick up the phone, find that number, dial the number, wait on hold, go through that arduous process just to talk to someone at the airline. All you have to do now is take out your phone and send a Facebook message or a WhatsApp just like you're talking to a friend. So obviously, the result was more people were reaching out for help. And their contact center was already staffed. At the time they had hundreds of agents, and it really wasn't possible for them to handle this rapid spike of volume. And so they were the first to look into applying AI and machine learning to help empower the existing agents they have to be more productive so that they can handle more cases. And they conducted a market study. They looked at all the different vendors out there, and they chose DigitalGenius. It's all on there. It's all online. You can read about why they chose us. But what comes back to is the practicality of the software. It's not about a black box and the coolest research. It's about producing machine learning products that actually work at scale. And so when we deployed DigitalGenius at KLM, we started seeing an increase in adoption. So their agents were picking up and using the tool more and more. And the tool started taking over some of the parts of the process that agents don't like doing. So things like classifying cases and searching through knowledge bases and saving clicks. And at this point, the overall operation now, KLM's had this software running for over a year. The overall impact to the business has been nearly a 35% increase in efficiency. Wow. And so cool. And this is a global operation, right? So that's an example of a big, global airline. And I'll give one more quick example, which is that our latest government partnership was with a government entity in the UK called the Aylesbury Vale District Council. Okay. And they've been fantastic because, you think about AI and companies being early adopters. Well, how do we make sure that the government can innovate as quickly as the private sector? And so Aylesbury Vale District Council became the first to implement an AI tool to help their citizens and their constituents get better, faster service. Cool.
Nice. I like it. And two great examples. So thank you. I mean, I have one final question before I we start kind of bringing things to a close, because I know you're kind of a busy man. But so the thing I wanted to ask was, you went back at the beginning, or go back to the beginning. You talked about how people perceive AI, and they talk about it's either sort of this threat or this super like a superhero type friend, as it were, or a superpower. Yeah. And there's a lot of people that are talking about the threat side of things, and they're saying it's like, they're kind of worried for, jobs and employment and all this sort of stuff. So a two-part question. I mean, do you think that as the use of AI in contact centers increases, is it going to reduce the number of jobs in terms of heads and people employed in customer service? Or if it's not, is it going to free up time? And if so, where are those skills going to be better deployed, let's say?
So I think, first of all, it's definitely an important aspect of this whole AI conversation is its impact on jobs. And the second part is I agree with the latter statement, which is that AI is going to help empower team members, employees, and people to perform better and more effectively, therefore opening up opportunity for them to create more value in the business or organization for which they work. So if you go into a contact center now, I've been doing this for 4 years, talking to hundreds of agents about, hey, what do you love to do about your job? What do you love doing? And what do you really hate doing? And every time it comes back with the thing that the agents does not like to do is the thing that the machine is better at doing. It's these repetitive, mundane tasks. that agents are forced to do today because they're using outdated tools and outdated technology. And so I think of AI in a contact center much like a calculator in an accounting firm. You'd never expect an accountant to do their job without having access to a calculator. And you don't really think about, oh, do I need one? It's taken for granted. Or same thing in banking. You don't expect a banking analyst to perform their job without Excel models. Mm-hmm. These are all tools that help them do their job. So I think the same thing is happening with machine learning and AI, is that these agents and these managers are going to demand that they have machine learning tools and AI tools as a table stakes technology at their contact center in order for them to work there.
Perfect. So, Mikhail, is there anything that you kind of wanted to kind of add that you've missed out before I ask you my two final questions?
Sure. Yeah. Well, just one thing. There's a lot of talk these days about this sort of tangential concept that often gets thrown into the mix with AI, and that, of course, is chatbots.
Right.
So we've seen chatbots kind of hype starting the end of 2016, all throughout 2017, and until now. And the important thing that the audience should remember is that a chatbot in and of itself is a channel through which you can have autonomous conversations between, let's say, brands and customers. Mm-hmm. Now, what the chatbot doesn't necessarily address is what's powering the chatbot under the hood. Mm-hmm. Is it an AI machine learning algorithm that is being used? Is it a basic rule-based system that needs to be prescripted, like a script, like a decision tree? And a lot of times, chatbots get bulked in with AI, but the reality is chatbot is just a channel of conversation, and it can in fact be powered by AI. There are very few companies out there doing this today effectively. Most of the bots out there are just rule-based scripted systems, which are effective in narrow use cases, but really not the savior when it comes to customer support end to end.
So I think the lesson from that, folks, is make sure you know what you're buying.
That's right.
So, Mikhail, that brings me to the last two questions that I always ask at the end of these interviews. And the first one is a piece of ongoing market research that I do, because I published a book last year called How to Wow. And what I've been doing ever since I published the book was to ask everybody I've interviewed to give me their perspective on what they think wow service or wow experience is for them. So if you could share with us your view on that, then that would be tremendous.
Definitely. So my wow anecdote is very simple. Many years ago, I was buying a pair of shoes on Zappos.com, and there was some kind of issue I had with the package. And so I called them, and the experience I got literally made me say wow, because the phone rang once. It was picked up by a very pleasant sounding customer service agent who said, "Good morning, it's a wonderful day here today at Zappos. How can I help you?" And it's that level of enthusiasms plus the efficiency of how quickly they responded to my call made me say, wow, now I know why Zappos.com is considered, if not the best, then definitely one of the best customer service operations, in the world, and probably in the history at this point. And that made me say, wow. And then I started thinking, over the course of years, and now getting into Digital Genius, I was thinking, what enabled some companies to create that type of experience? And inevitably, it's the ability to invest in your own people. Mm-hmm. And so we talk a lot about AI and how this machine learning technology is going to be amazing, and it's going to be so smart, and it's going to learn. At the end of the day, business is a very human experience, especially customer service. So if you can invest in your people by providing them the right training, by providing them the right tools, and some of those tools should be AI tools, but if you could provide your people and invest in them, then you are going to create more wow experiences for your customers. You're going to set your brand apart from the competition, and you're probably going to win.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I was lucky enough to be able to visit Zappos when I was in Vegas earlier this year. And I tell you what, some of their people are just extraordinary.
Love it.
In fact, most of them are extraordinary. I mean, they I mean, many companies talk about, oh, it's all about our people. And then you speak to their people and they're sort of all the same. And the thing about Zappos is they are all different and they all bring different things to the party, but they're all just great. I mean, the people I met were just, they just exude kind of helpfulness and happiness and energy and enthusiasm. And yeah, so I'm hopefully going back this coming summer. And hopefully, I'm going to get a chance to kind of go and see them again. But yeah,
that's awesome.
Just because they're just cool. I mean, I'd like to buy shoes from them, but I'm based in the UK and they don't deliver to the UK as yet. So,
well, you can have it shipped to our office here in San Francisco. We'll take care.
There you go.
So to your point, actually, to your audience, if you can get out there and visit some companies like Zappos that have really taken their internal team and have invested in them, and you can literally track the results of this type of investment by seeing how well their companies are doing. And if you can't get over there, reading a case study or a book about how Zappos has done it could be a really good place to look.
Fantastic. So, Mikhail, that brings me to my final question that I always ask at the end of these interviews. And the question is this: is there anything that you would like to shamelessly plug?
Yeah, that's a good one. I appreciate that question, Adrian. Thank you. So actually, I have a very interesting plug, which is that I want to put a word in for the unsung heroes, the people, the customer service professionals who are working every day in the trenches of contact centers for one reason, because they want to help us solve our problems. And so not enough credit goes to those guys because they're just kind of behind the scenes. But I'm telling you, as technology advances, as these customer service professionals finally get the right tools in front of them so they can be effective in their job, these are going to be the people that are the front line of any company and any organization creating value for people and creating value for their business. So let's give them a hand, definitely. And if you ever meet somebody working in the customer service industry, definitely tip your hat, because those folks are doing a great job.
Fair play and chapeau to that comment, Mikhail, because I completely agree with you. I think they are unsung heroes. They are rock stars that are just waiting to be discovered. They sometimes do such a tremendous job and under sometimes quite unforgiving circumstances, particularly when volumes go through the roof, and particularly around about sort of like the holiday kind of time of the year. But yeah, I completely agree. I think anything we can do to help people kind of do their job brilliantly, because actually most people just want to come and do a great job, and if we can give them the tools to help it be a bit more interesting and less banal, and they be a bit more efficient and bring the best version of themselves to what they do, then yeah, fair play.
That sums it up right there. Thanks, Adrian.
So, Mikhail, I just want to say that's been tremendous. And first of all, I want to congratulate you on your success, also on the book, because I think it's a really straightforward, simple read, really useful. But I also just want to say I'll make sure I get all this linked up and give you guys a big kind of shout out when this goes live. But finally, I just wanted to say thank you for your time today. That's just been tremendous.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you, Adrian. Really appreciate it.